Hey guys, this is Housing Samurai, and welcome to my list of the most anticipated movies of the year. In this list, I've gone through the movies that have been announced to release in the year 2022, and selected the ones that I think will be most worth your time, and more importantly, my time, because I'm going to go see them in theaters. Now, this list will not be your standard top 5 list in order of ascending hype. Instead, I've organized the list as I perceive it, in order from most prominent to most obscure, as I plan to do on all of my future lists, to help make the top few entries a little bit less predictable. Now, with introductions out of the way, before we get into the main list, here are a few quick honorable mentions. First up on the list of honorable mentions, we have Avatar 2, the sequel to the 2009 releasing highest grossing movie of all time about blue aliens on, I think it was one of Saturn or Jupiter's moons, and their conflict with humans. I don't remember a whole lot from this movie. All I remember is it looked real good, and that's pretty much the important part. But this sequel has been in production hell for like 10 years, so I have no idea what the story will be. So I'm excited to see if all that time in the oven has cooked up something good for us, or if it's just going to be a feast for the eyes that ends up being somewhat forgettable again. Next up on the list of honorable mentions, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The first one released during the first COVID year, but it was actually a lot of fun, and ended up being one of the better video game adaptation movies to date. It was so much fun. Jim Carrey was great in it. The first time we've gotten to see Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey, or at least what he's known for a little while now, and I'm excited for more. It's not going to be the most incredible movie or anything super special, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. For our final honorable mention, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is the direct sequel to Spider-Man No Way Home and WandaVision, both of which were pretty good. And it's also being directed by Sam Raimi, who directed the original Spider-Man trilogy back in the early 2000s, and arguably started the superhero movie in its current form. So I'm really excited to see what he does with it, and what they do with the starting point that Spider-Man and WandaVision have left for him. And now, into the actual list. Number 1, The Batman. I don't know what to say about this one. I probably would have been excited for this movie regardless of how the trailer looked. But then the trailer looked amazing, and now I'm really excited. This is the first Batman movie since the Nolan trilogy ended back in like 2012. And it looks like the movie will feature several villains, which is something that traditionally has made me a little nervous, thanks to movies like Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2. But recent movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Far From Home, or No Way Home, maybe it's just a Spider-Man problem. But needless to say, these movies have kind of quelled that fear, so I'm not as nervous about it. I'm particularly excited about the Penguin, though, because he's giving me more traditional movie mobster vibes than we've seen in the last few versions of the Penguin that we've seen. Even though the last few incarnations of him were great, like Danny DeVito and whoever, I don't know the guy that did him in Gotham, but he did a good job with him in Gotham. So those two were both great. So I'm excited to see that. I'm also excited to see the Riddler, but on a certain level, I'm a little disappointed they didn't bring back Jim Carrey, because I love Jim Carrey. He was great, even though that movie was a little bit campy. I didn't see Gotham far enough to see their version of the Riddler, but I'm pretty sure that they had one. Anyway, more importantly than any of that though, this is a superhero movie with some actual style to it. Like, go watch the trailer and think about the last time you saw an MCU movie that looked like this. The only other superhero movie in recent memory that I can think of that had actual styling to it like this is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was incredible. So, I'm excited for that. I mean, look at the action, the framing, the color grading. You don't see this in superhero movies today very often. And it looks great and gritty in a way I haven't seen in a while. So I'm hyped.
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart.
Number 2, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you saw the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you knew this was going to be here. That one is one of the few elite movies that I would rate a solid 10 out of 10. And as a result, this is probably my most anticipated movie for the year. It's been one that I've been excited for ever since the first one. Basically since the credits rolled on the first one when I saw it in theaters a couple of years back. So I'll be super interested to see what they come up with as far as the visuals go for this one, since the last one they did such a good job of utilizing the full medium of animation in a way that you don't see all that often. They were manipulating the frame rates and adding interesting smears and all sorts of interesting stuff. I'm interested to see if they come up with something new for this one or if it's just more of the same. That's going to be awesome. It's going to be beautiful. I'm also interested to see what they do with the story. Hopefully it manages to be as good as it was last time, but it might be difficult, I think, because they can't just stand on the anyone can be Spider-Man theme again. They'll have to come up with a new theme. I have no idea what that would be, but all of the Spider people, of course, in the last one were amazing and a lot of fun. I especially liked Spider Noir as far as the ones that weren't real main characters go. He was really funny, had a lot of good jokes. I'm interested to see if they give him a bigger role in this one.
A lot. Sometimes I let matches burn down to my fingertips just to feel something, anything. Oh.
Speaking of Nicolas Cage, number 3, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. This movie is about a down-on-his-luck Nicolas Cage, yes, he plays himself in this movie, who is in desperate need of money, so he takes $1 million to go to some billionaire superfan's birthday party, and then the CIA recruits him to investigate this billionaire because the billionaire is actually a drug lord played by Pedro Pascal. It sounds almost like if Zoolander was made by Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal instead of Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, and Zoolander was great. So that's something I'm all here for. Both Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal are great individually as well. I especially loved Pedro Pascal in Wonder Woman, the second Wonder Woman. Even though the movie as a whole was a little jank, he was really fun in it. And if he can bring that fun, and Nicolas Cage can bring his usual brand of zaniness and fun, this movie, I think, might turn out to be really a good time. It's being marketed as the most Nicolas Cage movie ever, so I'm excited to see what actually comes of it, and whether it's going to be great or terrible.
You go!
I'll never forget you, Habs.
Mr. Cage, it turns out we could have just walked around.
Wow, you're so.
Number 4, Suzume no Tojimari, which in English roughly translates to something along the lines of the locked sparrow door. Sorry, my Japanese isn't that good yet. So this movie is an anime film directed by Makoto Shinkai, who is one of my favorite directors. He did Weathering with You most recently, and Your Name a few years before that, which is probably my favorite movie ever. He's also got some other great ones that are worth looking into, and you should definitely go out of your way to find them if you haven't. I probably have too much faith in this man as a writer-director. So the movie's poster was enough to sell me on it by itself, and I don't want any spoilers. I don't want to know what's going on. So for those of you who do care, here's a screenshot of the movie's summary that I am avoiding reading at all costs. You can pause and read it if you want to. I probably would recommend against it if I've sold you on it already. But yeah. This is probably the only movie this year that can contest Spider-Verse 2 for my most anticipated. I can't wait to see it. Unfortunately, it comes out in fall of 2022 in Japan, and oftentimes these films don't get released worldwide until much later for some reason. So here's to crossing our fingers, hoping that we get to see it before the end of the year. And now for the final entry on this list, number 5, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Surprisingly enough, Doctor Strange is not my most anticipated multiverse movie of the year. That goes to this movie, a title that I have not seen anyone talk about, or any posts about it, or articles, or anything online, surprisingly. I only know about it because of a trailer that was shown before Spider-Man No Way Home when I saw that in theaters, and that was enough to immediately grab my attention. I've probably watched the trailer like 5 or 6 times now since then. So here's a little bit about what the movie is about, from what I can gather. This movie is about Miss Evelyn Wang, an older Chinese immigrant who has to save the world by way of alternate reality versions of her own life and the skills she learns across the multiverse. This one looks weird and wacky and dripping with style. There's all kinds of strange worlds that we see her in. In one of them, she's one of those people that spins signs on street corners to advertise stores. In another, she's a chef riding on one of her co-workers' shoulders. In another, she's an action movie star. In another, the whole world is animated. And in another, she has hot dogs for fingers? I'm not sure why, but I'm interested. The action looks good, the concept sounds good, the acting looks good, and the directing looks good. So I think this one's going to be strange and a lot of fun. I'm really excited by some of the little details that I see, even though that's probably not that big a deal as for most people. But you see things like this woman whose nail polish changes colors like a Jeb sheep from Minecraft. And that's enough to make me think there was enough thought put into this one that it might be really good. I'm a little nervous though, because it is rated R, and it's obscure enough that it reminds me of movies like Sorry to Bother You, which really went off the rails towards the end and changed from being decent to just really weird. It is written and directed by the same people who did Swiss Army Man, which is even weirder than Sorry to Bother You, but was much more cohesive as a whole. That movie is easily the strangest movie I've ever seen, and I'm still not really sure if I like it or not as a result, but it was well made enough that I think there's a good chance that this new movie will turn out to be just as good as the trailer makes it out to be. So for now, I am nervously excited for this one, and I'm crossing my fingers hoping that it doesn't get to be weird to the point of being off-putting, because if it isn't, I expect Everything Everywhere All at Once will be one of the most entertaining movies of the year. So that's the end of the list. What did you think? Is there a movie that you're excited about releasing this year that I didn't talk about? Or are you excited about one of the ones that I mentioned? Let me know down in the comments below. A quick little update for the channel. I'm planning on releasing a few more lists like this one in the coming weeks. Probably a most anticipated TV shows list, and then one for best movies of last year, and another for the best shows. So if you're interested in any of that, should hopefully be done and uploaded in the next couple of weeks. I'm gonna try and shoot for one each week or so. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button below. If you hated it, click the dislike button below. And if you want to see some more, click that subscribe button. And I will see you next time.